Welcome. In this tutorial, let's have a look at explicit message history pattern. Now let's have a look at the main dependencies needed. First is a database dependency. I'm using H2 in-memory database. Also, we need Spring Boot starter JPA. Let's update application.yaml file as well to configure database properties. Also, let's enable H2 console. From Spring 4 onwards, we need to specify one more dependency, that is for accessing H2 console. Let's save, install, run. Now let me navigate to browser and access H2 console. Now let me specify the database what I have configured in properties.yaml file in the JDBC URL, then connect. Now let's create a folder entity. Let's create an entity chat memory entry dot java. Let's annotate with entity and let's give the table name chat memory. As I don't want to create setters and getters, I will add an Lombok dependency. Now let's use add getter. Let's also annotate with no args constructor. Also define the access protected. Let me accept the coding suggestion. Let me annotate the first one with ID. Also let me annotate this with generated value strategy. Let me import this. Let me define the column with null label false and name conversation ID. Let me accept the coding suggestions as they look relevant. Let me change the content type to text or glob. Also, let me define one more column for the timestamp. Instead of SQL timestamp, I'll use local datetime. Let me rename it as created at, then initialize it. I think we have now complete entity definition. Let me update some GPA properties. Hibernate DDL auto update so that whenever I restart, if the table is not already created, it will create the table. Let me create a folder for repository and create chat memory entry repository.java. Let me annotate this with at repository, and this is an interface which extends JPA repository chat memory entry. Let me import the java.util and chat memory entry. Now repository definition is complete. Let me create a service. Simple chat memory.java. Let's annotate this with service. Let's define chat memory entry repository. Let's add the constructor which injects chat memory entry repository to this class or service. Now let's define add method. Void add, which takes string conversation ID and then message. Let me delete all this. Let's extract message type from message dot get message type dot get value, and let's extract message content as well dot get text. Now save it to the repository. Let's define get method as well, which returns list of message, which takes string conversation ID. Here we invoke chat memory entry repository find by conversation ID, order by ID ascending. Let me remove this and define it clearly. Let's iterate over each entries here, mapping each entry to a message. To save time, let me paste here a code snippet which extracts type content from each entry and returns a message type. If it is user message type, then returns the user message object. Similarly, assistant and system message objects. So this completes simple chat memory service. Now let's define memory controller. Let me accept the coding suggestion. The first two fields are chat client and simple chat memory. This is to invoke LLM, and this is our service we defined just now. And this is constructor which initiates these. Let me rename this to agent chat, and let me rename this to chat. Let's rename request parameter as message. Let me delete all this. Let's define a conversation ID and add whatever message we receive to chat memory. Then let's get the chat history from the database by providing conversation ID, and let us invoke chat client dot prompt messages dot call dot content. Let's assign it to a string response, then add the response to the memory, that is database table, and then return the response. So Lombok is not working correctly. We have to define a Lombok plugin here. Let me define it. Let's rebuild. We are able to bring up the application. Let's see if the database table is created. Let me refresh, connect. Yes, we can see the database table. This time, let me bring up the Postman to test. Before hitting API, let's run. There are no rows in the table. And now let me go back to the Postman and the hit API with the message, hello, my name is Nitish. I'll send this, hello Nitish, it's nice to meet you. So I'm getting the response. So let me run it again and see how many records we have it in the table. There are two records. First one is, hello, my name is Nitesh. And second, this is the response, which is also saved in the table. If I hit again with different message parameter, a question, what's my name? Now it has the history saying my name is Nitesh, so it should give my name now. Yes, your name is Nitish. And let me run select query again. We should be having 4 records. Now let's look at how it works. So when I hit the request, hello, my name is Nitish. So it goes to the database and stores it. Then the same thing will go to the LLM. LLM will respond saying, hello Nitish, nice to meet you. That also we will store it in the database. So these two are not different databases, it's same database. So when I hit the second API call with the message, what's my name, it picks up all the history in the database and will send it to the LLM. So LLM uses all those history and gives back my name here. Let's wrap this tutorial here. In the next tutorial, we will see conversation sessions. See you there.